Good morning, students. Today we are going to learn about scientific method. In the previous, we were discussed about why do we study biology, what is the purpose of studying biology, and the relationship of biology with other natural science subjects. And also, we today going to see about the scientific method. What is expected from you here is you, after completing this session, you are expected to explain about the scientific method. What do we mean by a scientific method? Meanings of hypothesis. There are two types of hypothesis. Those are null and alternative hypothesis. How can we reject them? We will also this concept. Formulating hypothesis. Practice doing scientific experiment and drawing a bar graph. We will also see the hypothesis in practice within examples. By the way, biology is a science of it is a science of inquiry, innate behavior, asking something, why something happens, when something happens. This is a science of what? Inquiry. What something comes to your mind when you hear about the word science is curious about the why things happen, or how things happen, why things happen. For example, if you see worms in a dung or in a mud after the rainy season, you will see so many types of worms in the mud. So you may ask yourself, in the dry season there was no worms, but in the rainy season, in the mud, you find or you observe so many types of worms. So you ask yourselves, why worms came here as the rainy season? Why worms are not observed during dry season? So biology is a science of inquiry, by asking questions and seeking what? Science-based responses, known as what? Scientific method. You ask yourself why worms are observed in the mud, and you will also give a science-based responses. So those responses called what? Scientific method, which comes from with new theories to explain new findings. Why the cause of the occurrence of worms during the rainy season. By the way, we don't give answer for our observation of worms merely. We should follow what? A series of steps that guide scientists through scientific investigations. Biologists study the living world by posing questions about it. Okay, now let us see the general steps of scientific method. From the general steps of scientific method, the first thing scientists should do is observing the phenomena. We have to be keen observer for all activities. Especially scientists should observe something, why something happens, when something happens, the reason and the duration of time. Careful observation is a very important aspect of scientific method. A problem to solve that leads to a question. The observation can be made either what? Either out the naked eye, that is direct observation, or when we use our direct observation, we use what? Our sense organs. We hear, we taste. By the way, you cannot taste something. It is dangerous. It is not advisable. And we observe through our eyes, or indirectly using microscopes. The biologist's most important tool is what? Microscope. After observing the phenomena, we also ask questions. Why things happen? After giving a question for the phenomena, we also form a hypothesis. hypothesis. Hypothesis is educated guess. Educated person's guess. It is a proper scientific explanation, proposing scientific explanation. For example, the worm may come from what? The eggs of other worms. This is what? Scientific hypothesis. A possible answers. It may be true or not. For a set of questions to solve the problem, one can propose several hypotheses. We can propose several hypotheses. The worm come from the egg of other worms, or it may come from the living organism, come from non-living organism, or we can propose those worms come from other places through the flood. By the way, those explanations or those hypotheses should be what? Testable. It should be testable. We have to test our hypothesis through what? Experimentation. Any scientific experiment must have the ability to be what? Duplicate, because the answer the scientific came up with, whether it supports or rejects the original hypothesis, can't be part of the scientific knowledge unless the scientists can perform the same experiment and achieve the similar results. When we observe the phenomena or the occurrence of something, we give scientific explanations. We give what? Scientific explanation. Those explanations should be what? Testable. When we test and give a result or a conclusion, it should be what? Duplicated in all over the world. It gives us the same answers for our experimental tests. If a hypothesis is not supported by experimental data, one can propose a new hypothesis. After testing the hypothesis, we make what? Conclusions about our results or our findings. We should consider their original hypothesis and ask whether they could be still bear light of the new information gathered during the experiment. If so, the hypothesis can remain as possible explanations for how things work. If we reject the hypothesis and try to come up with alternate explanations, new hypothesis that can be explained why they have seen. If our explanations or our hypothesis cannot be tested, we have to give another hypothesis for our observing phenomena. After testing this and concluding the testable hypothesis, we have to communicate our findings. We have to communicate our results with the international journal of our results. When scientists or a person completes some work, they write what? A paper that explains what exactly they did and the results they obtained. By the way, when they prepare the results, it should include what? Different parts of explanations of giving write a paper that explains exactly what they did and the results they should be explained. Those are what? The first one is it should have a cover page. It should have what? Cover page. Then a title and a content, acknowledgement, background, introduction, a statement of the problem, limitation and delimitation of the problem. After that, what? Main body. What is the research talking about? That is called in Unit 2, which will be in Unit 2. And in Unit 3, we will also present what? Method of testing or method of our scientific journals. At the end, there may be what? Recommendations. And then they submit the paper to a scientific journal in their field. In addition, the findings will be printed in scientific journal and assist teachers and students in the field. A hypothesis, when you say hypothesis, a proposed scientific explanation, or it is an educational guess. Let us see about testing a hypothesis in our everyday life activities. Assume we want to use our torch lamp. We use our lamp to do what? To find something, a missing pen. Let's say a missing pen, or let's say it is a missing other objects in our bedroom or in our kitchen or in other place, but the place is dark. We use what? A torch. When we use a torch, the torch, when you switch the torch on, is not what? Making. It does not give a light. So, what do you think? You want to use your light, but your torch cannot give light. So, what comes to your mind? What may be the problem of the torch give not a light? We will see a chart that illustrates hypothesis for a torch that does not work. The first thing is what? As we have learned earlier, the first thing here is observing. The torch does not work. This is what? Observation. We observe our torches that cannot give a light. Next to observation, we ask ourselves why the torch does not give a light, or why our torch give not a light for observe our missing pen or other materials. Hypothesis. After question, we formulate what? Hypothesis. When we give a hypothesis, we also give what? Two types of hypothesis. That may be, in other words, hypothesis 1 or hypothesis 2 or alternative hypothesis and null hypothesis. For now, you see hypothesis 1, the bulb burned out. We may assume the burned out. You can assume the burn may be what? Burned. This is what? Hypothesis 1. Hypothesis 2, the bulb is improperly screwed. The bulb is improperly screwed. The first hypothesis, as you remember here, is the bulb is burned. The second hypothesis, or hypothesis 2, is the bulb cannot be improperly screwed with this one, or the bulb does not cope up with those things. You see, does not match. Now we are going to do what? Experiment. Whether the burn or whether the torch is burned or the torch is improperly screwed. Now let us experimentally test. The first experiment will be what? Replacing the bulb by the new one. And the third or the second experiment is what? Reinstalling the bulb with this one. We have what? Two experiments. For experiments, we'll have what? A result. Two results. Result 1, in spite of the fact that replacing the bulb give not give light. The first hypothesis is what? Rejected. Because we replace the bulb with the new one, but we didn't find a light. The first hypothesis 1, is rejected. The second result, the torch works. The second hypothesis, the second reinstall. We reinstall the bulb with this one. And when we use what? The torch gives light, or the torch works. The second hypothesis what? Accepted. So we have two hypotheses, hypothesis 1 and hypothesis 2. If hypothesis 1 does not work, it could be what? Rejected. And if hypothesis 2 works, hypothesis 2 will be what? Accepted. But if you didn't result in two ways, you may have other hypotheses. For today, it is enough. If you have any question, you will come with a comment part. For now, bye.